So with Total Drama being so successful both in Canada and in the States, naturally a second season was greenlit. Although I can't help but wonder what would have happened if the second season hadn't been greenlit, and they did that whole elaborate ending at the end of episode 27 for nothing. And as I mentioned, Season 2 uses the same formula as Season 1, but with noticeable tweaks here and there that I am sure to go over in this retrospective. Let's just get to it. So the first thing you're going to notice is the reduced cast for the main game this season. From left to right, we have Owen, Izzy, DJ, Trent, Jeff, Bridget, Lindsay, Beth, Lashana, Gwen, Justin, Heather, Harold, and Duncan. And also Courtney, but we'll get to that in a bit. What you will also notice is that despite the reduced cast, there are still 26 episodes this season, just like in Season 1, not counting the post-finale specials. This means that it's statistically impossible for a contestant to be eliminated every episode and still make it to the finale on the proper pace. So instead, there are some episodes that don't feature eliminations, and rather, simply reward challenges. This seems to be a point of contention within the fan base, but personally, I don't mind it too much. The lack of eliminations in certain episodes are not what make them better or worse than the standard elimination episodes. But that's not the only significant change in Total Drama action. Every 6 episodes, there's this aftermath show of sorts. Imagine those reunion specials that shows like The Bachelor has at the end of their seasons, only they take place in the middle of the season. It feels like kind of a strange choice to do it like this. I suppose they thought that the viewers could use a break from the monotony of the constant barrage of challenges and the contestants getting hurt. And in that case, I can't really blame them. And to their credit, they do provide some very hilarious moments, mostly coming from Jeff and Bridget's interactions. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Jeff and Bridget are the hosts of this new show.
Say what?
Remember how I said they were part of the season cast? Well, they were the first ones voted off. Why were they kicked off first? Because they wouldn't stop fucking making out with each other. So they were gifted in the interim with this side show, I guess. Because being contestants on a reality show totally makes them qualified to actually host one. Honestly, it's not a bad idea, but it's definitely a weird idea. Really, it just feels like a way to keep the non-competing contestants from Season 1 involved in this season. And even then, they don't really get a whole lot to do, so it's just like, why? So like last season, the contestants are divided into 2 teams, aptly named
The Screaming Gappers for the Killer Grips. Lame!
And due to a twist, it's Gwen and Trent as team captains. Which means they're going up against each other. Nice. Except not really, because this is where the bullshit with their relationships starts. See, Gwen's first choice is Duncan, and we soon learn that Trent is indeed the jealous type. Or he's just really stupid.
I choose the beautiful Lindsay.
And you're an idiot.
Yeah, they turn Trent into this moody, jealous type, and he just automatically assumes that Gwen has a thing for Duncan. I mean, I know what happens later on in the series, but at this present moment, no, they're just allies. And he never gives consideration to the idea that she's picking him because he got farther in the competition than most of the people there. Hell, that's the reasoning he gives for choosing Owen over Harold, so what the fuck are you doing?
How do you choose between flakier and flakiest? At least Owen got farther in the last game, that's where something...
You really are a fucking moron, aren't you, Trent? It gets so stupidly ludicrous that they start giving him these stupid quirks, like his obsession with the number 9.
9 moats? 9 flags? 9 wicked jam rooms?
And he gets so bad that he starts intentionally throwing challenges just so Gwen's team can win so she doesn't have to go home. And when Gwen catches on, she breaks it off with him, and his team votes him out. So congratulations, dumbass! You're out both $1 million and a cool goth girlfriend! And then there's Duncan and Courtney's relationship. Although I suppose before I get to that, I should talk about how Courtney gets back in the game, alright? So you remember how in the first season Harold tampered with the votes just to fuck with her and get her kicked off? Pepperidge Farm remembers.
She got booted out fair and square.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid.
We filed a wrongful dismissal lawsuit against the producers. And won.
Wait, hold up. Something's wrong. Go back.
My pathetic lawyer lost my lawsuit.
So is this like a new lawsuit that you filed? Or did the writers just forget what they wrote down from the first season to now? You know what? I'm an asshole, so I'm gonna go with the latter.
Great continuity!
Good news, eh, Duncan?
Considering you're the reason she had a case in the first place, you really shouldn't be talking right now, Harold.
At this point, Mr. Reynolds, I'm convinced you have a learning disability.
But yeah, halfway through the season, Courtney makes her return and sort of takes over the role of the antagonist of the season. I'll get to that more in a bit, but right now I want to talk about Courtney and Duncan's relationship directly. It doesn't work for me here. Last season, it worked a lot better for me because I felt like it was a traditional coming-of-age story. You know, the uptight, stuck-up, play-by-the-rules girl learning to let loose and let herself go once in a while thanks to a rebel. It wasn't original or even groundbreaking, but it was charming enough, and I bought it. But none of that is here. It really isn't. Sure, Duncan and Courtney have their moments when they're attracted to each other, you know, in a banal manner, but the chemistry just doesn't work. Admittedly, a lot of it is due to the fact that Courtney took on the antagonistic role in this season and is trying to win $1 million after getting screwed over last season, but even so, any hope of it working out is immediately dissipated at the end of the season when Courtney makes Duncan read out a 32-page letter of her basically complaining about what a dipshit he is. And look, Duncan is a delinquent, but who the fuck wants to hear that from someone they want to date? Look, the idea of Courtney making Duncan address his faults and vice versa is not a bad idea. The problem is that it's one-sided. Courtney is never forced to acknowledge her own faults and her own problems and work on those to make a relationship with Duncan work. No, ask her and it's all Duncan's fault. Duncan is the bad guy. She's a saint. I mean, the way she tried to manipulate him in the episode where she gets axed, to forego the challenge and just focus on memorizing that bullshit letter or risk losing her was such horseshit that I let out the loudest cheer that I've ever let out when she was eliminated. At least Gwen and Trent's relationship ended amicably and in a way where you could feasibly see them as good friends. That's not the case with Courtney and Duncan. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that in Season 3, they still try to pull bullshit to make us think that there's a chance these two could work out. Like, come on! Then there's Izzy and Owen. There's not really much to talk about on that front. It's basically the same as it was in Total Drama Island, and that's always a good thing because I love those two. And then there's Jeff and Bridget, and even though they get so little screen time during the competition, they're the stars of the Aftermath shows, so I might as well talk about them. Basically, the fame from Total Drama gets to Jeff's head and he becomes a monumental douchebag, not unlike our beloved host Chris. And it gets unbearable. In universe, at least. Out of universe, he was actually kind of tough. It's a fine line when writing a douchebag character because you still want to make them likable to the audience, even if you're trying to make them unlikable to the characters in the show. And I think the writers did a really good job of capturing that fine line here. But his douchiness is pretty bad. And it gets to the point where he starts being a little unfaithful to Bridget. It's not outright cheating, but wandering eyes is still pretty reprehensible. Though I'm not sure what's worse, that or the fact that he indirectly called Bridget fat one time.
You know what they say, a moment on the lips, a lifetime on the hips.
Are you real?
Thankfully, his douchiness was brought mostly in check by the end of the Aftermath specials. Still, this is the same guy whose calm demeanor was enough to make Gwen cut loose a little last season. So this is a seismic shift in attitude if you ask me. Finally, there's Lashana and Harold. And to be perfectly honest, I still have no idea what the hell to make of these two. Like, it's not even that they're a bad couple, they're just fascinating to me. Or at least for this season they are. Come next season, the show pretty much drops in and no one gives a shit anymore. And that's more of a byproduct of the writing overall going a bit off the rails. Now that's just the romantic pairings, but what about the characters themselves and how they're written? Well, this is where some of the problems start. I've scratched the surface on the character derailment Courtney and Trent went through, but mixed in this season are also some fascinating character interactions. Probably the most notable are the ones between Chef Hatchet and DJ.
I see a bit of myself in DJ, but I had to develop the macho in myself without somebody like me helping.
Is that what you're calling it now? Long story short, Chef enters DJ into an illegal alliance with him, where he promises to, quote, toughen his ass up, in exchange for splitting the prize money with him 50-50 if he wins. I gotta say, I was pleasantly surprised at how captivating this subplot was for the few episodes that it actually existed. The way Chef Hatchet and DJ played off of each other surprisingly engaged me a lot. They're total opposites, but that's what makes it endearing. It's especially nice seeing DJ's guilty conscience get the better of him over and over again, since he's essentially being asked to sabotage his team and the other team as well, all in the name of getting to the end. Thankfully, character derailment is not a concern here, because DJ eventually outs himself as a cheater and sends himself packing, which basically leaves Chef exposed and humiliated. Honestly, I don't know what's funnier to me, that Chef went through all of this trouble just to get some prize money and failed, or the fact that he tried again the following season, proving that he learned nothing.
I'm so ashamed.
No, you're not.
Now, as for Chef and Chris, separate from that, there's a bit of a problem. It's evident from the first few episodes of Action that going forward, Chef and Chris are going to be a lot more sadistic towards the contestants. There's a moment during one of the challenges where Chef literally throws a book at Owen and breaks his jaw. And Chef and Chris treat it as an afterthought. And it rightfully pisses everyone else off. What's even funnier is that later in that very same episode, the challenge goes wrong and the contestants' lives are legitimately put in danger. And Chris actually shows concern for their well-being, while Chef fucking doesn't.
Texas Hold'em?
You're not hearing me!
What? Gin rummy?
To be fair, Chris's concerns are completely superficial, but it's still better than what Chef shows. And it's still nowhere near as bad here as it gets in seasons 4, 5, and 6. And speaking of characters that act antagonistically, let's talk about the antagonist of the season. The first one, at least. Justin. Remember, he barely got any dialogue in Total Drama Island, and he only lasted 4 episodes before he was axed. This season, he's cunning, he's diabolical. He uses subterfuge through his own looks to manipulate others to do his bidding so he can go all the way. And he's great! He went from one of my most neutral characters in the franchise to one of my favorites. That is impressive. And of course, the 2 underlings he takes under his wing for an alliance are Lindsay and Beth. Now, one could reasonably argue that this was a bad choice, that it was just retreading the previous season. But I'll argue that it was actually a smart idea. First of all, Justin is completely different from Heather. While Heather was your typical high school bully girl who belittled Lindsay and Beth into submission so they do whatever she wants, Justin used his good looks, his charm, his personality, all to make them go gaga over him so they wouldn't think clearly. It's a different method to get the same result. And what especially makes it work this time is that sometimes it doesn't even work. Yeah, there will be moments where his charm on them just straight up fails and they don't do what he wants them to do. It's not often, nor is it very consistent, but I thought it was a nice change of pace. What's hilarious about Justin's character is as the show goes on, his physical beauty starts getting, well, for lack of a better term, screwed around with. At one point, he's even convinced that he's fugly, and he starts trying to use the thing in his head that he calls a brain to help him win. It's just stupid enough for me to love. Personally, it didn't bother me too much that he was eliminated earlier than one might reasonably suspect the antagonist would be. You don't always need the villain of the season to go all the way to the end for the season to be interesting. And I think this season proves that. Yeah, Courtney made it to the top 4, but to be perfectly honest, I didn't find her as nearly as interesting of an antagonist as I did Justin. Sure, she has her moments, and the context for her return makes perfect sense, and I'm glad they capitalized on that. But after that, I merely just tolerated Courtney. I think Chris said it best.
You've got issues.
Correct!
Actually, that brings us to Lindsay and Beth themselves, and they get a major step up from where they were the previous season. Lindsay actually gets a few opportunities to be a team leader. 2 admittedly mixed results, but hey, it's a step up from where she was in Total Drama Island, a season that, I will still argue, has her defining moment. She also has this bizarre friendship developed with Duncan for a full episode. It's really weird, but also strangely endearing. If I have one nitpick about her character, it's her elimination. Yeah, she accidentally votes for herself, and she's out of the competition in, like, the last few episodes. Like, I know Lindsay's character is supposed to be an airhead, but this just feels like too much. At least when she did it again in All-Stars, it was intentional, but I'll get to that later. And of course, as always, her friendship with Beth is absolutely adorable. Which brings us to Beth, who gets a lot of growth in this season. Hell, she's one of the 2 finalists. That's pretty damn impressive. The best thing that they did for her character was make her take the experiences from her alliance with Heather in Total Drama Island and whatever the hell was going on with Justin earlier in Season 2 and use it to manipulate Courtney to her advantage in the latter half of Action. Yeah, Courtney tries to drag Beth into a fake alliance to get herself propelled, but Beth sees right through it and throws her right under the goddamn bus, and it is glorious. She's also part of one of the best punchlines the show has to offer, and it's great. Throughout the season, Beth keeps referring to this person back at home by the name of Brady, whom she claims is her boyfriend. Understandably, no one believes her. But come season finale time, it turns out No! This Brady guy is actually real!
Not only is he real, he's really handsome.
You stupid.
Although this does end up making this exchange a little more awkward.
You made your point, Harold. I'm calling it off with Brady and
What the
giving
hell's going on?
No, seriously, to go from being one of Heather's mindless slaves to one of the 2 finalists of the following season is a really damn impressive feat. By the way, the other finalist was Duncan. That brings us to Duncan himself. He doesn't get a lot of development, really, even with the Courtney bullshit. We do learn that he can be a hell of a method actor, though, so that was nice. He's also incredibly resentful towards Harold because of his vote tampering that fucked Courtney over in the previous season. But beyond that, he's the same guy that he was last season.
Seeing good. Seeing Chef as a transgender troll? Priceless.
Fuck you. Fuck you. Fuck you forever.
Yeah, that line has aged like milk. Izzy is another character that really doesn't get a ton of growth. Her thing this season is that initially she wants to go by the name of E-Scope. You know, short for kaleidoscope, and she gets axed very early on. But then it turns out she never actually left and she was hiding underground with the animals or some shit, and now goes by the name of Explosivo. Don't fucking ask. This means for the 2nd consecutive season, she came back to the game and was voted out twice. So, do with that information what you will. Look, I'm a sucker for crazy and eccentric characters, and Izzy is definitely in that group, but I admit she can be very hit or miss in that regard. At least her relationship with Owen is adorable as always. And that brings us to Owen. Yeah. Okay, so the episode where Courtney comes back into the game is also the episode where Owen is voted out.
This week, according to our lawyers, none of you are allowed to vote off Courtney.
10 seconds later.
Why do I have 4 votes to boot out Courtney when I specifically said you couldn't?
Which means that Courtney's vote was the only vote that counted, and she voted for Owen. Now, him getting axed is not the problem. It's them bringing him back that was the problem. Oh yeah, so they actually bring him back.
What? I second that. What?
Recall that in universe, the reason Courtney was able to come back for action was because of a lawsuit against the show that she won. But don't you worry. The circumstances surrounding Owen's return are a lot dumber. If you'll recall from the first post-finale special, Owen had to surrender his $100,000 grand prize just to be eligible to compete for the $1 million bonus prize in that episode. Obviously, Owen didn't win the million there, so... You know what, just... Jeff, you can explain it for me.
Your mom was so sure her little boy was gonna win the moolah last season, she went out and blew 50 grand.
What did you buy? A teensy tiny, extra large cheese seller.
Let's ignore the fact that Owen was actually delighted at that revelation and focus on why he was brought back to the show.
So Chris offered me 50 big ones to come back and stir up the doo-doo.
No! No!
There's a few reasons why I really don't like this development. For one, yeah, it does go completely against Owen's established character. Secondly, the justifications for this move are flimsy as all hell, especially when it was shown that Owen was actually happy about the cheese seller. Sure, maybe he shouldn't have been, but that's Owen for you. Thirdly, part of the appeal of action was that characters that didn't do as well as Owen did on Island got a chance to really shine in action. Bringing Owen back and opening the possibility of him making it to the finals again really goes against that pitch. Not to mention that I just didn't find his antics to be very funny when he was supposed to be the mole. Fortunately, his antics don't last very long, and he's rightfully ousted before the finals. Funny how Owen was eliminated in the episode Courtney came back to the competition, and now he and Courtney are leaving the competition at the same time. Heather was her usual self, snobbish Queen Bee, only without the prestige of being the antagonist this time. Also, she's bald. But then there's Lashana, who decides to actually play the game for once. So there's a reward challenge early on where only one player from the winning team gets to actually enjoy the reward. Long story short, Shauna puts on a dog and pony show and her teammates decide to let her have it. And then later on, her teammates really let her have it.
Lashana fake cried to get the reward with Lashaniqua?
Oh wait, it gets even better. Apparently, Lashana forgot the golden rule of reality shows. You are never off camera.
Wow.
Ooh, Heather. Just mean for the sake of being mean. Lindsay has half a brain cell, max.
That was outside the game. I didn't know anybody'd see it.
Number one rule of reality shows, Lashana, Never assume you'll be off camera, especially when it comes to fucking Chris McClane. I think the funniest part about this entire saga is that Heather, of all people, is the one to defend Lashana. Is this out of character for Lashana? Honestly, I don't think it is. Lashana is always the one to tell it like it is, from my experience. And even if it is a little out of character, keep in mind she hasn't been home away from these people since the beginning of Island. I can't exactly blame her for feeling like she needs to vent to someone. Another part of her character this season that really baffles me is her insistence on trying to get her, Harold, and Duncan to form an alliance. The gameplay aspect is one thing, but why Harold and Duncan? Okay, Harold I can maybe understand because he's still smitten with her, but why Duncan? She has to know that Duncan and Harold can't stand each other. Harold can't stomach Duncan because he constantly bullies him, and Duncan can't stand Harold because he's responsible for ousting Courtney the previous season. This is an alliance destined to fail is all I'm saying. And it goes on for a significant portion of the season, so it just gets annoying after a while. And then there's Harold, who, I'm not gonna lie, was actually one of my favorite characters to come from this season. He made it very deep into this season's composition, so he had his fair share of moments to shine. My favorite moment of his was him posturing as Captain Alberta in the Superhero Challenge. Which reminds me, I should probably talk about the challenges too. So as the name of the season would imply, Total Drama Action, this season's focus is movies. No, I don't mean like that. Chris didn't just suddenly become the nostalgia critic. Thank fuck. No, the challenges this season were all focused on different movie themes and genres. Hell, the first challenge after they were divided into teams were them reenacting a scene from a script they were given. Admittedly, they don't really follow the spirit of movie making very well in terms of these challenges, but it is a nice shake-up from the challenges we saw on Island. I don't think these are necessarily better than the challenges from Island, but they are different enough where I can still enjoy them. Hell, the final challenge is basically just a hodgepodge of all the previous challenges that came before, which I found to be pretty amusing. And I guess on that note, I should talk about the finals, shouldn't I? What's funny about this season is that the final challenge actually ends in a tie. And then they use the final Aftermath special to actually settle the tie. I don't know, I thought it was pretty funny. Hell, Chris himself has to hijack the special just to finally declare a winner. I think this might be my favorite season finale of all the ones the show has given us, simply because it's the complete antithesis of what we've been conditioned to expect from a finale for Total Drama. The winner this time around is chosen by basically a jury vote, where all of the eliminated contestants get the opportunity to either ask a question to the finalists or impose a challenge on them to help them determine their vote. Chris may not have gotten much enjoyment out of this segment, but I sure as hell did, even though it was obvious some questions and challenges were meant to be lamer than others.
Now that the show has disfigured my face, I want to know if I can still be a leading man, or will I only be allowed to do character actor roles?
Justin would go on to be a non-speaking extra in Ghostbusters 2016. It's not a typical Total Drama finale, but I don't know, I still enjoyed it a lot. And of course, like Island, there is a post-finale special. It basically functions as a Where Are They Now sort of special to start off, chronicling everyone's antics post-action. I guess their contracts didn't call for an automatic third season from them. Well, not the old contracts, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Basically, Total Drama is up for an award, and when Chris refuses to acknowledge the cast, they think they're not famous anymore, and they want to do anything they can to get it back. Wait, what? Huh? Yeah, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this one. I'm not as big of a fan of this post-finale special as I was the previous post-finale special. And it's weird for me to say that because I have always wanted a side series featuring these characters and their lives outside of Total Drama the show in-universe. But it doesn't work for me here, and I don't know why. Maybe it's their insistence on wanting to keep their fame, get back in the limelight that bugs me. I mean, you would think that after 2 seasons of putting up with Chris McClane and his bullshit, they would want to get as far away from that lunatic as humanly possible. Fame and money be damned. But no, that's not the case at all. Oh, and it also turns out that everything that was set into motion by Chris not acknowledging them at the awards show was merely a ploy on his part.
I needed to find out if you kids still had it.
You do understand that the reason most reality shows stay fresh is because of their constantly rotating casts, don't you? Chris, I think we need to have a little talk about your obsession with these minors. I'm not implying anything, I'm just saying...
Please seek some counseling.
But yeah, it turns out this was all a ruse just to see if the cast still, quote, had it, unquote, just so he could cast them in the newest season of Total Drama. Once again, I have to ask myself why the fuck any of these people would want anything to do with Chris, even for $1 million smackaroons. But no, all of them agree to come back. Well, some of them at least.
Hey, what's Chris doing with everybody on TV? Chris just cast your buds on the next season of Total Drama.
You really have to feel for everyone that's applied to get on this damn show that's never heard back because Chris insists on reusing the same people over and over and over again. So yeah, not everyone from the original cast gets to compete on the third season. But this is balanced by the fact that some of the contestants that didn't compete on action got to compete on season 3, while some who did had to sit on the sidelines this time. Probably the most important thing to come from this special is the introduction of 3 new prominent characters: Sierra,
Fuck you,
Alejandro, and Blanley. You're going to want to remember those names, they'll be important later. But yeah, that pretty much leads us into the next season, which is entitled
Total Drama!
Absolutely not.
So, fun fact, the third season was originally going to be titled Total Drama The Musical, but then was unceremoniously changed to Total Drama World Tour. And yet they still kept the singing, for some reason. Yeah, we'll get to all of that when I cover Total Drama World Tour. Join me, won't you?